So, what if I told you there's a prophecy in the Bible that isn't vague at all? I mean, what if it's a precise mathematical countdown to a specific day in history? Not just a rough prediction, but a clock that was set ticking centuries in advance. That exact prophecy is right there in the book of Daniel, and honestly, if the math checks out, it's one of the most staggering claims in all of Scripture. I know, that sounds like a pretty bold question, right? But the answer, according to a whole lot of people, lies in a vision given to the prophet Daniel way back in ancient Babylon. And listen, this isn't just about ancient history. If this countdown is for real, it has massive implications for how we view the reliability of the entire Bible. And this is where it all starts. Picture this. Daniel, he's an old man now. He realizes that the promised 70-year captivity in Babylon is almost over, and he starts praying for his people, Israel. And in response, the angel Gabriel shows up. But he doesn't just give a simple promise. Nope. He lays out a very precise timetable, a 70-week program for the entire future of Israel. Okay, to really get this, we've got to put on our detective hats. Gabriel lays out a whole series of clues and a very specific timeline. And it all kicks off with one single, absolutely crucial Hebrew word. All right, first clue, the Hebrew word shavuim. Now, our Bibles translate this as weeks, but it doesn't mean a 7-day week like we think of it. It literally just means sevens. The context makes it super clear that we're talking about sevens of years, kind of like how our word decade means a unit of 10 years. So 77s is actually a 490-year period. This is our master timeline. And Gabriel doesn't just give us one big number. He actually breaks this 490-year period into 3 distinct parts. You've got an initial 7-7 period, which is 49 years, followed by another 62-7 period. Now together, these first 69 sevens, or 483 years, are said to lead directly to the arrival of the Messiah. That final 70th 7 is set apart, a future period we'll get to later. For now, all our focus is on those first 69. You know, any countdown is pretty useless without 2 key things. You need a clear starting point, and you need a precise way to measure the time. And this is where the prophecy gets incredibly specific, because it gives us both. And boom, there it is. That's our starting pistol. The clock doesn't begin with a feeling or some general event. It starts with a specific command, a royal decree to restore and rebuild the city of Jerusalem itself. So our first job is to hunt down that decree in the historical record. And guess what? We find it. The book of Nehemiah records that in his 20th year on the throne, the Persian king Artaxerxes issued this exact kind of decree to his cupbearer, a man named Nehemiah. We can date this historical event to the month of Nisan, around 444 BC. That is our starting point. The prophetic clock is officially ticking. Okay, so we've got the start date. Next up, we need to know how we're measuring time. Biblical prophecies consistently use a standardized 360-day year. Think of it as 12 30-day months. Now, this is different from our normal solar year, and the evidence for it actually comes from the Bible itself. So where does this idea come from? Well, if you look in Genesis, the timeline of the Great Flood equates 5 months with exactly 150 days. Do the math, that's a 30-day month. Then, thousands of years later, in the book of Revelation, it equates 42 months with 1,260 days. Again, that works out perfectly to a 30-day month. So this 360-day calendar is the key to our whole calculation. All right, let's recap. We have our start date, the decree of King Artaxerxes. We have our special calendar, the 360-day prophetic year. Now it's time to do the math and follow the trail of evidence wherever it leads. The math itself is actually pretty straightforward. The prophecy is for 69 weeks of years. So first, we take 69 and we multiply it by 7. That gives us 483 prophetic years. Then we just have to convert those years into days using our 360-day calendar. So 483 times 360 gives us our grand total. And that gives us our magic number, 173,880 days. That is the precise length of the countdown that the angel Gabriel gave to Daniel. A specific number of days, starting from a specific royal decree, leading to the presentation of the Messiah. So this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we start the clock around 444 BC and count forward exactly 173,880 days, where do we end up? Does it pinpoint some random Tuesday in history? Or does it land on something incredibly significant? Well, a number of researchers have tackled this head-on. Sir Robert Anderson, who was a top investigator at Scotland Yard back in the 1890s, he applied his sharp, forensic mind to this problem and landed on April 6, AD 32. Then, decades later, Dr. Harold Honern from Dallas Seminary used modern astronomical data and fine-tuned that date to March 30th, AD 33. But here's the absolutely incredible part. Both of them, using slightly different starting points, landed in the exact same week of history, the week of Jesus' final Passover. So let's dig into this because the end date of this calculation isn't just some random day during Passion Week. No, it's a day that was already packed with prophetic meaning. Okay, so the math points directly to Nisan 10 on the Hebrew calendar. Why does that matter? Well, if you go back to the book of Exodus, this was the exact day that Israel was commanded to select their Passover lamb for sacrifice. And on this very day, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, publicly presenting himself as their king, which, by the way, fulfilled a completely separate prophecy from the book of Zechariah. The way these things all converge is just stunning. And it's almost like Jesus himself confirmed the importance of this specific day. He weeps over Jerusalem and he says if only they had known on this day what really mattered. That emphasis on this day really suggests it wasn't just any old day. It was the appointed day, marked on God's calendar for more than 500 years. But hold on, we're not done yet. Gabriel's prophecy actually keeps going. He describes two key events that have to happen after those 69 weeks are over, but before the final 70th week can begin. So the text says that after the 69 weeks are up, the Messiah would be cut off. I mean, that's a clear reference to the crucifixion. Then it predicts that the city of Jerusalem and its temple would be destroyed, which historically is exactly what happened in AD 70 when the Romans came. This creates what many call a gap or a pause in the prophetic clock between the end of that 69th week and the start of the final 70th week. Remember, at the very beginning, Gabriel listed 6 big things that had to be accomplished in these 490 years. Well, when Jesus was cut off, he completely fulfilled one of them, to atone for iniquity. But the other 5 cosmic goals, things like bringing in everlasting righteousness, they're still unfulfilled. That points to a future completion in that final 70th week. So what's the takeaway here? This is so much more than just a cool historical puzzle or some ancient math problem. It has profound implications for how we can look at this text today. And this is really the key. If the prophecy was fulfilled with such mind-boggling precision for the first 483 years, it serves as this powerful anchor of credibility. It suggests that the final unfulfilled 7-year period isn't just some wild speculation, it's simply history that hasn't happened yet. And that really leaves us with one final, unavoidable question. If a text this ancient could really contain a mathematical formula that targets a specific day centuries in its own future, a day that lines up perfectly with the most important events in the New Testament, what does that tell us about the source of that information? What does it imply about the one who claims to be the author of history itself?